Howdy, guys. Attorney Walter Rufnall III. Here we are. We are live now. Excellent, excellent. So my apologies. We are starting super duper late. We're at 8:26 right now. Normally we're supposed to start at 8. I did notice a few people called in to go ahead and run some hearing questions. I totally understand that. I'm going to do the quick intros like we always do. Here we go. Disability Resolution PA. I've been working at that law firm that I own for about 8 years now, maybe going on 9 years. This one right up here, spaceconstitution.com. I've been working there for basically 0 years. I've just been for the past 2 years designing the website, preparing everything, getting everything rolling. Waiting for that 501c3 certification, and then that'll be my nonprofit. This will be my for-profit, okay? This one's all about fighting for the rights of those who are disabled, and it's like a general fighting for the rights of people who are on Social Security benefits across the spectrum. You know, those who are retired, those getting disability benefits, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Ramblin' Rome, howdy, howdy. Very nice to see you. The other one right up here, spaceconstitution.com. The whole point of that website is that we're allowing basically anyone on Earth to write down any laws that they want considered, any laws that they think should be put into Constitution, basically expanding the freedoms and the rights of people so that they have more rather than what we keep getting every year from the government, which is less. Okay. All right. So that's that whole gig right there. Howdy, guys. Howdy, Caitlin. Howdy, Nikki. Howdy, howdy. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and begin with some of the basic stuff. I want to go through what I'm noticing and what I'm seeing in the Social Security disability field, and what I'm also seeing specifically with the changes that are coming up with Social Security disability benefits with the Biden administration. Okay. So as you guys know, I was really the first one to debunk that whole extra $200 a month situation. That, and then of course we had people commenting saying, "Hey, why do you always create these videos when there's no benefits coming?" Blah 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 blah. I was the first one to debunk that whole $200 extra a month. I explained that was for COVID purposes, meant for 2 years, specifically brought by a senator. That was not Biden. Okay. Now, with that said, I was the first one also to bring up that the whole expanse and change of Social Security disability benefits and Social Security benefits in general is going to realistically be applied specifically from the 2100 Act. Now, why is this? Well, first and foremost, it's a Democrat-based act. It's got a lot of people who have signed on. The commissioner, along with the analytical group, the financial people at the Social Security Administration, have already done the finances for it. However, obviously, due to the COVID situation, everything's changed a little bit, so they have to refigure out the calculations. And the kicker is that this whole Americans not paying much tax for a couple of years situation is obviously really going to hurt those trust funds. The whole game is defined by the trust funds. Is there money in the trust funds? So what I want you guys to realize is that the reason you're not seeing a lot of quick that movement is that I don't think the current administration of the White House is really set up to figure out with immediacy exactly how financially bad the situation is when it comes to money being paid in from people working. Now, it does not take a genius. Walk through me with this real quick. It does not take a genius to know that if people are not working, then those trust funds are not getting filled, some of them at least. And as a result of that, we basically have a great reduction in the amount that's in trust funds, which means that the Social Security 2100 Act has to do major recalculations. With that said, the big problem is this. It's putting a lot of weight in taxation on the wealthy. Now, a lot of you guys are saying, screw the wealthy. They don't deserve money. They have enough money, yada, yada, yada. And I get that. I get where you're coming from. I totally understand that. The kicker is that the amount of taxation that's put on basically $400,000 plus is significant. It's a lot. So if somebody earns a heck of a lot of money, then they're getting a whole new chunk of taxation put onto them that they did not have before. So you have to weigh and balance the situation, because the rich, they pay the most taxes. We all know that. It's actually not the poor. It's not actually the middle class. It's the wealthy. And the problem is that if we take too much from them, they're going to move overseas to a different place. And while you're sitting there going, well, they're not. Well, if they move to France, it's even worse. If they move to England, it's even worse. If they move to Russia, it's even worse. Yeah, it's worse in a lot of these places, but it's not worse in Ireland, and it's not worse in the Caribbean. And it's very easy for them to just change where they live to start having different taxation rules apply to them. You ever notice how those big super yachts are all you're registered from the same place, there's a reason for that, and that's so that they don't have to pay taxation on it. That's personal income tax, general taxation on the initial purchase of it, all that stuff. So just realize the wealthy, albeit, yeah, we can tax them a heck of a lot more with the Social Security 2100 Act, and that's Biden's thing here. That's where the major money is coming from. It's not coming from the general population. The problem is essentially, that at the end of the day, the wealthy have the ability to move to different countries. And if we lose the wealthy, paying taxes to the U.S. system, then we've got a problem. Now, with that said, you have a balancing up and down situation. The up and down situation is these wealthy can go ahead and basically afford more tax, but at the same time, they're not going to want to. So if they don't want to, they also have the ability to buy another house somewhere else, set up a business somewhere else, and do their things somewhere else. Okay, so I'm so sorry, guys, that we got a call right now. Hold on, let me see. Okay. Hi, this is Attorney Walter Knott. How can I help you? Perfect. We are live on YouTube. Remember to use a fake name throughout this. And also, would you like me to, I guess you said you want me to answer a question. I'll answer a question for you. Okay, what is the question?
Okay. My question is like, I'm just new at all this disability stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was sent to the bank. Social Security called me and said I'm going to their doctor. Mm-hmm. So I went today. But he wouldn't take any of my records.
He wouldn't take any of your records? Did you bring medical records?
Right. Hold on, sorry. I don't know where I'm at. Okay. Yeah, he wouldn't take my records. They told me to take paper copies, not a disc. Mm-hmm. So I spent a lot of money printing them all out, and I had them in order, and I had little tabs, this is for this is for that, and he said, no, he didn't need any of them. Well, Social Security doesn't even have them. So
let me ask you this, and I think this is important. Did the doctor present to you or explain to you what medical records he currently had, like for your claim?
No.
Okay.
He just said that he just had some questions to ask me that they sent him.
Okay. So, guys, this is a good example right here of a situation where the number one question you need to ask the medical expert at the consultative examination appointment when you're trying to obtain disability benefits is, what medical records were you provided from the DDS rep? Or just, what records do you have on me? Do a history with them. That's like one of the most basic questions you should ask them. And in this case, it sounds like the doctor sounded pretty secure in the records that he did have. Can you explain?
I don't think he didn't have any.
So did he not make reference to any of your impairments? Did it seem like he just didn't have any knowledge of it?
Yes, because my impairments are, I have the MS, then I have some eye issues that have to do with that, and some like diabetic retinopathy kind of stuff from a long time ago, although I'm not diabetic now because I rule it with food. Food is medicine.
Sure.
And then, the JC virus, I don't know if you ever heard of that, but I have the JC virus, which if you have that, then, he just asked me some questions about it, and then he said he never heard of the JC virus, so I explained it to him that everybody has it, there's no cure for it. But if you have it, you can't take a lot of those MS meds because it will kill you. You'll get PML and it'll kill you. Mm-hmm. So, it was just kind of bizarre, I thought.
Okay. So now, are you represented by an attorney or no?
No.
All right. So then you're going to have to do this on your own, which is going to suck a little bit. But you have to contact the DDS rep, and you have to do what we do at the firm, which is called a post-CE debriefing form. They don't have one. You're going to have to just kind of write one up. But the bottom line is you have to go into detail about everything that you felt was wrong with that medical appointment, all the things, all of the impairments he didn't address, all of the things you should have talked about and didn't talk about. And then also you're going to want to call up the DDS rep and ask her, well, what documents did you send to that medical doctor in order for him to have an actual medical expert ability to create a diagnostic impression on me? And you might be surprised. They usually only send a couple of all of them, if they even have a couple of all of them by the time they send you.
Right.
So I guess what your question is, how do I get the weight of the evidence of that medical expert reduced so that it doesn't hurt me when the MCPC gives direction to the DDS rep?
Right. And at what point after this part, because someone told me, oh, well, this is on the last leg.
The phone cut out there a second. Say it again.
I wonder how long it takes after going to this, the Social Security disability doctor for an evaluation that it takes for them to.
So basically, the amount of time it takes depends largely on, do they already have all the medical evidence required? Because if they're waiting for a medical facility to send them stuff, it just makes it longer. But let me give you a walkthrough as to, since you've seen that doctor, how much time it will probably take if they don't need any more medical evidence. So you see the doctor, you saw him today. It takes about a week to 2 weeks for them to write up the report. The report is then transmitted over to the DDS rep. The DDS rep receives it and then basically sends it out to the MCPC. The MCPC then takes that document, reviews it, and that takes about 2 weeks from there. Once the DDS rep gets it, sends it over to the MCPC and gets it back. At that point, you're looking at a month, and at that point, the DDS rep receives it back, creates a finalized report, and submits it to their manager. The manager then says yay or nay. If it's nay, they got to work on it some more and answer some questions. If it's yay, if it's an approval, it goes up for quality control. If it's a denial, it goes back to the local field office immediately. So you're looking at total probably around 2 months.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if you get a job, you can't, you're disqualified. But if you don't have one, you can't live.
Well, that's not, so here's the thing. The bright line rule that everybody knows is if you work, you won't get disability benefits. But that's not actually true. The rule is if you work over $1,310, you're over SGA for 2021, which means that you don't want to work over that amount because you become ineligible for back pay for that month. However, you can work for a couple of months, and if you do work for a couple of months and fail, aka you're in a failed work attempt, meaning that you just couldn't do the job, you got fired or quit after a couple of months, that actually helps your claim because it proves that you had an inability to go ahead and do the job, and usually they're very simple jobs.
Which I told this doctor that, like I have a medical license myself. I'm a radiology technologist, ran the diagnostic department at the cancer center. Then I'm also a geological geophysical tech, worked at an oil and gas company. And since I've got this MS, I've had 14 failed job attempts, when in 25 years I've had 2 jobs until MS.
So the bottom line here is you've got to go ahead and contact the DDS rep and try and get the weight reduced of that doctor, make a complaint, ask them what evidence he had, yada, yada, yada. And then also look up for your particular impairments, what types of, what types of medical treatment are expected and what types of review are expected, and then compare that against what you saw there. There's another thing here too, which is that, one of the big things you're going to have to make sure is that DDS rep gets all of your medical evidence, because you don't have an attorney following up to figure out whether or not they got it all and whether or not they're doing anything with it.
Exactly.
And be careful what you...
He sent me a form saying, here, we'll reimburse you for your mileage, over there and back,
Sure.
So I'm thinking I'll just attach these medical records that I had all set up for this guy with that and send it.
So here's the quick thing that's really important too. You got to remember, when you went to the doctor, did the doctor focus mostly on your medical conditions, or did they ask you a bunch of RFC questions like, are you able to drive? How did you get here? Are you able to cook?
No,
clean?
He didn't ask me. No, he didn't ask me any of that. He just we just talked about, the MS and then, the eye, because all this stuff with my eye, I had to go to a specialist and get scans, multiple scans. He thought it was just like a problem with vision, so they did an eye chart, and it's like, nah, okay.
All right. So my suggestion, and those are all my suggestions, but my additional suggestion is see if you can get it at this level. If you can't get it, go find an attorney to help you out, because the problem is this. You sound like a person that's been through it. You sound like somebody who's given it their all, somebody that's like, I'm going to do this, the arm up in the air, But the problem with that is that if you put testimony into the SSA with that kind of mentality, then you've given them the testimony they need to usually find you not disabled. Not to say anything in particular, but people with your type of get her done, I can do this, I can make this happen kind of mentality, they tend to put down more on those forms that they can do, which usually ultimately hurts them when it comes to the review of those documents. Like when you were filling out that 3373 adult functional form, like, what were some of the things that you said you could do on that form versus some of the things you said you couldn't do on that form?
I'm not sure. Like I said, I just told them, know about stooping, walking, reaching, that kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So, I mean, look, and I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to have enough time because I ran out of time for finishing the brief that I got to get done even today. But I'm not going to have time to look at the 3373. But at some point, please consider, and I know you're a DIYer, but at some point, please consider, if you get a denial at this stage, maybe grab an attorney to help you through the next stage. You'll probably get another denial, but then you'll at least be set up properly, administratively, medically, etc., for that hearing that you'll have to go to.
Okay. Yeah, I filled out a thing myself for the first time when I first got hit with this and couldn't walk or raise my arms or nothing, and I got denied. So now then, after trying to keep working, and it's 14 jobs later, I've reapplied.
Gotcha. All righty. Well, Madame, do you have any additional questions for me?
No, I think that's it. Like I said, I appreciate all you do and giving us information.
Absolutely. Have a wonderful night, and I'll catch up with you later at some point.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so guys, I want to go through a little bit more of what's going on with the Social Security 2100 Act. I'm going to be doing a huge video on it, so I'm not going to be super nitpicky during the live session. I want to point out to you guys that things are moving significantly slower than what I expected. Now, to be fair, with like the whole prior administration, we saw like, thing, like on the clock every second, every little doop, there was something going on. But with this administration, it's very different. So we have to be a little understanding with Biden too, because he's been in there. He hasn't been in there that long. He's only been in there 100 days. However, to counter that, my emotional feelings about it as a disability attorney is that he should have put into place more action for what he promised to become president, which is getting rid of the 5-month waiting rule for SSDI benefits, getting rid of the 24-month waiting rule for Medicare through SSDI benefits, getting rid of the SSI marriage penalty. All these things were promises made by him right up front. And unfortunately, there's been zero chatter. There's been zero acknowledgement. There's been zero articles about it. So I just want to let you guys know that at the moment, there is no definitive, and I want to make this clear, there is no definitive future benefit increase unless they start to do more with the Social Security 2100 Act. And to be honest, due to COVID, they may be making that not a Social Security 2100 Act. They may be making this like a Social Security 2050 Act, because they took a huge hit as a government with basically not receiving all the taxes that they normally would because they shut down the economy. And here's the problem. They're going to have to come out with some additional stimulus, not only for the people, but also for the small businesses, because small businesses, they're not usually in high yield, like high financial gain industries, which means that when you knock them down a few pegs, it takes them significantly longer to catch back up. So they're going to have to offer probably more loans, more grants, more stuff like that to go ahead and get them going in the right direction. So anyways, guys, I wanted to talk about that. I also wanted to talk about specifically what's happening with ALJ, administrative law judges, and things like that. I have noticed, and I've been doing this for a while now. I've been doing this for a really long while. I worked for 2 firms and some other stuff before I started my own firm. My own firm I've had for 8 years. So bottom line is I've been in this industry for a long time now. Almost all of the older judges at this point have retired for the most part in the Florida area. There's a few, there's maybe one per, geographic area, but almost all of the older judges at this point have retired. And the older judges tended to be the more liberal judges with giving benefits, with approving things. which is ironic because these judges that are older were considered more conservative when they were brought on as younger judges compared to the older judges from a whole generation before all this. So what's happening is this. I just want to be fair and tell you guys what's happening with the administrative law judges. A lot of the times where there's like a, hey, can we get a little bit of like, slack on this claim? Hey, can you consider this? Can you give the benefit of the doubt to this claimant? There's hardly any benefit of the doubt given to the claimant anymore. There's hardly any of that happening with hearings. I've seen people say the telephone hearings are terrible. I've heard people say the telephone hearings are wonderful. It's actually mixed. I'm going to tell you basically some of the things I've noticed. If you're an older person and every aspect of your body is saying disabled, you're walking into the hearing room with a walker and any orthopedic device that you can throw on you, and that your body is just destroyed, falling apart, things like that. Obviously, when you walk into the hearing room, that's going to have a large effect on the judge. But if you're younger, you don't want to walk into that hearing room without all the additional things on you and then talk with that younger voice, because the bottom line is it's just no matter who you are as a human being, whether you're a judge or not, it just right off the bat, the judge looks at the person and goes, okay, younger person, not a grid out, da-da-da-da-da, they seem okay to me, here we go. So you got to understand the phone call versus the no phone call hearings. Sometimes the phone call hearings are appropriate and sometimes they're not, but don't just throw them all out of the window, because I've seen it go both ways. So I want to tell you guys this. One of the things that scared me, like I said, is that when it comes to disability hearings, most of the older judges have at this time retired. There's only one left at the Orlando hearing office, and I'm pretty sure he's going to practice until he passes away, which has happened to quite a few of these judges. When they're judges, they usually practice until they pass away, especially the guys. But I've noticed female judges, that there'll be some issue, they'll actually retire. I don't know why that is. I mean, if you look at like the Supreme Court, they obviously stay on until the very, very end. But the bottom line is, bottom line with this for the most part, most of these judges tend to stay on. And I've noticed mostly the male judges will stay to the very end. These male judges and female judges that are older, they tend to be more liberal. There's hardly any of them left. All right, next thing you need to know is this. Throughout this process, right, there used to be some wiggle room with drugs. There used to be some wiggle room with tobacco. There used to be some wiggle room with alcohol. It used to not matter as much. They are terminal towards claims now. If you have drug abuse without some sort of treatment, if you have drug abuse with some sort of continuous, you had treatment, then you failed and you didn't get further treatment, if there's no actual group that's treating you, the judges are just going to use their materiality clause, which is that if the drugs are material and causing the impairments to become more severe than the severity required. So if they were less severe and then you take the drugs and they become more severe, then they're going to deny you. There's no wiggle room now. It just doesn't exist. Let me see real quick. Hi, this is Attorney Walter Knott. We are live on YouTube. Would you like me to answer a question or run hearing questions with you?